Hi, everybody. Glad you're here with us today. This is another installment of 10 Words or Less, in which I ask interesting questions. Well, you be the judge. Brief questions of interesting people and ask them to reply in brief ways themselves. Mark, I should have written it out. Okay, that's cool. So, today's guest is a health coach, financial advisor, and social activist, not to mention a passionate accordionist. Before we get started, a note to all of you playing at home. 10 words, as you may know if you've listened before, is a target, not a limit. So please, no counting. If you think it's so easy, let's see you do it, especially on the fly. And with that, let's welcome my guest for today, Marc Sussman.
Good afternoon.
Even though I know the answer, it's the last time I will know the answer, I still like to begin with having my guests spell their first and last name, so there's no excuse for getting it wrong.
Okay, Marc is with a C, M-A-R-C. Last name is Sussman, S as in Sam, U-S-S as in Sam, M-A-N.
Thank you very much. Born, when and where?
Born January 4th, 1952 in Brooklyn, New York.
And where do you live now?
I live in Framingham, Massachusetts, happily. A new transplant to Framingham, Massachusetts.
What are you doing these days?
I am studying nutrition. I am studying financial planning, returning to that vocation sometime this summer, and just staying abreast of all of the issues and important stuff that's going on in our country and in the world.
Yeah, I want to explain to everyone listening at home, sometimes there'll be some awkward, what may seem to your ear as awkward pauses. What explains that is that I'm taking notes, even though obviously it's being recorded and will be available in its entirety later on. I also need notes because I am going to do an edited transcript of this interview and publish it, I hope, within the next week or so. As I've explained to Marc already, but I always like to make clear for transparency, I may edit some answers, both shortening them or combining two. I may move question-answer pairs around in the flow from the way it actually transpired, and I may throw out some question-and-answer pairs because the questions weren't well conceived or I didn't find the answer interesting. And so the point, as Marc knows, I will then send him the transcript before I publish it. So before it gets published, Marc will have every opportunity, he will have the last word on whether what the editing I've done represents him fairly in the way he wants to be represented. So even though there will be some massaging for concision and for other reasons, Marc will still have the opportunity to say that it represents what he thinks. And you were aware of that, and that's cool with you, right, Marc?
It's very cool.
Okay, and so that explains why I'll be pausing sometime to continue typing, even though he's given me a concise answer just as I asked him to do in this episode of 10 Words or Less. So staying abreast of all the important events going on in the world. Okay, what did you used to do?
I was a financial advisor full-time and had been so for 30 years, over 30 years. A certified financial planner and investment advisor.
Okay, and when did you stop doing that?
2.5 years ago.
Okay.
Health and emotional considerations, I was burned out. And I needed to take a step back and reconsider what I really wanted to offer to people and the position that I wanted to represent.
Got it. And what do you, okay, you already kind of answered that. So I'll skip over it. What did you, tell me something you wanted to be when you grew up.
You know, I had this idea that I wanted to be an architect when I was a little boy. I had no idea what an architect was, but it sounded good to me.
Did you ever take any overt steps toward actually making that come true? Or
No, it never came up. It was an idea, and I throw it out because I know that it's true. I drew when I was 5 and 6 years old. I drew pictures of buildings. That's what I did. There was never actually any education in that direction.
Did any of those pictures that you drew when you were 5 or 6 get built?
No.
Just kidding.
They had already been built.
Of course, of course. Tell me, an early influence on you outside your immediate family?
Current or from
an early influence.
Historical. Early influence.
Yeah. It could be, you know, you were Abraham Lincoln. It could be historical, but I mean someone or something. You know, it could be the 60s, you know, whatever you would say.
Yeah, probably, I would say probably the Dalai Lama. Yeah.
And when did you become...
I read a book that he wrote called Ethics for the New Millennium, which is probably the highest level. I wouldn't call it a financial planning book, but if you want to understand the true meaning of money, that would be a good book to start with.
True value of money?
Yes.
Tell me a hobby or a job that filled your teenage years.
Playing the accordion. I did a lot of that. From the time I was 8 years old until I was 15, I probably played between 3 and 4 hours a day. And I studied with, at that time, kids my age, and I'm talking about the late 50s, early 60s, were studying the accordion. It was not uncommon to send your kid for accordion lessons. Now they'd probably put you away if you gave your kid accordion lessons.
Okay, tell me some wisdom that remains from that experience.
Repetition and practice. There's no substitute for it. You can have natural ability, but you'll never reach your potential unless you've really put in the time. And that's true for any musician and any entertainer.
I would add to that, tell me if you agree, that it's true for anyone, not musicians and entertainers.
Sure.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Tell me something that sets New Yorkers and massholes apart. Besides sports, if you can.
People from New York are vibrating at a different frequency. And increasingly, it became difficult for me to vibrate at that frequency. They're just moving really fast. I used to come up here on weekends for about 4 years. And when I went home after the weekend and got off the bus, it would just hit me right in the face. Just the speed at which everything was moving, you know. Except for when they drive. Then people from Massachusetts are more out of control than people anywhere, in my opinion.
Out of control?
Well, there's certain techniques to driving up here that I have a problem with. I don't do well with tailgating. I get I'm fearful about people riding on my bumper at 80 miles an hour.
Okay. Tell me, what's been your foremost challenge?
Reevaluating, the last couple of years has been a really humbling experience. Just taking a step back, realizing that I was burning myself out, and reevaluating what I wanted to do with my life has been both humbling and been very rewarding. It's been the single most positive thing that's happened to me. And I realize that adversity is probably a valuable thing in all of our lives, overcoming adversity. So.
Okay. I don't know. I almost always end up taking these out. You might be the last person I try these kinds of questions with. Paper or plastic?
Paper.
Alone or a crowd?
Crowd.
Salty or sweet?
Both.
Get that a lot. Thank you. Tell me, what's your connection to Al Gore?
I had a radio show on the Air America radio network for about 4 years. Someone from his office was a listener. They called me, they wrote me an email actually, which I almost missed, and asked me to come down to a training that Al Gore was doing for people who were, environmental activists or wanted to be environmental activists. So I went down. It was October 8th. There's a story attached, but it's definitely not 10 words. That's for sure. And it was a very important experience. I met my girlfriend down there. She's also an environmental activist, and we've been training and doing presentations on climate change and its impact since 2008.
Was the vice president in any of those?
Yeah, he was in all of them. Yeah, he's the trainer.
Great. Tell me, you have an interest in integrative nutrition?
Yes.
So is there a link between environmental activism and integrative nutrition?
Absolutely. The way we grow our food contributes, greatly to production of both methane and carbon dioxide. Factory farming. Yeah, there's a very, very close connection between environmental impact. I mean, we get more CO2 and methane from factory farming by a wide margin than we do from industry or automobiles. That's where it comes from.
Yeah, I've heard stats like that. Just while we're there, you said that we get more CO2 and methane from factory farming by a wide margin than we do from industry or automobiles. Yep. If we combined industry and automobiles, would it still be like that, or together are they more?
I'm not sure.
Okay, not important. Just occurred to me as you were saying it. Okay, tell me, what is primary food?
Primary food is what really makes us tick. The nutrition that we get, the food that we put in our bodies, is really secondary to all of the component parts of our lives that bring happiness, satisfaction, joy. What I've found is that most people who have problems with secondary food, with nutrition, have big pieces missing out of their lives, whether it's relationships or spirituality or creativity, or their career or their education. Those are the component parts that make us, satisfied and and present people. And so people who I think compensate with secondary food and either overeat or are drawn to certain types of foods have missing pieces in their primary food. And there's something called the circle of life, which names all of the component parts of primary food.
Okay, now circle of life is a phrase. I'm guessing you mean something more specific, right?
It's an actual circle of life. It's an actual chart which identifies.
Where can people see that if they want to?
What?
Where can people see that chart if they want to?
I think that if they Googled circle of life, they'd probably come up with it. The coaching program, the integrative nutrition coaching program, uses it as a tool. It's proprietary, but I can tell you that with everybody that I work with, I use it as really as a tool, because it's important to identify where people's lives are, what's missing in people's lives.
Tell me, do you, you're studying nutrition, do you buy into the concept of food addiction?
Yes.
What does food addiction mean?
Especially sugar.
Okay.
It's difficult to make a distinction between somebody who's a heroin addict and a sugar addict when you look at their brains. You know, the effect that these things have on the human body.
I'm sorry, between a heroin addict and a sugar addict, when you look at their brain?
Yeah, you do CAT scans of their brains. They look almost identical in the way that the both heroin and sugar react in the human brain.
Okay, tell me, get near the end, is there anything you'd like to promote? Is there a website, or is there any way that you'd like to tell people to get in touch with you if they want to? Use that as you want to, or not at all?
Well, if they Google me, they'll probably find me. I've yet to put up my blog, which I will be doing shortly. I'm going to do a podcast, which I will be doing shortly, and you know, creating a website for my coaching system, but that's still, you know, something that's in the works. And there, you know, once you do a radio show and it's streamed on the internet, it's almost impossible to remove it. So if people look on the internet for what the show was called, The Money Message, it was on Air America for about 4.5 years. If they look on the internet, they're likely to find an interview that I did during that period of time. But there'll be new stuff coming out.
Excellent. Tell me something that you wish people understood more.
That we're all connected. I mean, really connected. That we're all, you know, what we do in our lives impacts on everybody else. You know, we think that, you know, we live distinct lives that are separate from everybody else, but it's not true. So to the extent that I wish people would spend more time serving other people instead of serving themselves. If I had the decision to make that happen.
Well, since you said it, let me ask you, you feel there's a way to do both?
Yes, you do both. By serving other people, you serve yourself. Yeah, definitely. Because that's the key to true happiness, is to serve other people. That's the key to happiness. Not to gather things for yourself, but to serve other people and make other people's lives better. You definitely make your own life better. It's the true it's a Dalai Lama message. He identifies a certain amount of money above which you really do not need it. You got a roof over your head, you got food to eat, then you go out and you serve other people.
Got it. Because, of course, tens of millions of people will be watching this podcast. Tell me someone outside your family who deserves...
Hey, why not? Why not, Michael? Why not?
Tell me someone outside your family who deserves more credit for what they do, and you're going to shine your light in this experience on them. Who is it?
Wow. Well, I have a friend who is currently teaching English to Taiwanese children, and he's been living in Taiwan for the last 4 years. His name is Neil Klein.
N-E-I-L or A-L?
A-L, thanks for asking.
A-L-E-I-N?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't think he fully appreciates what he's doing. But very talented actor. I hope that someday soon he will be coming home. But he deserves a lot of credit. And I try to encourage that in him, that he appreciates what he's doing. And I think it's getting through.
Is there something I should have asked you about that from where you're sitting was an obvious one that the person on this side totally missed out?
I think you got it all. You got the environmental aspect. You got the nutrition aspect. Maybe there's one thing in that as a financial advisor, I believe that we have to be concerned about what our money does, not how much of it we have, but what our money does. And I believe that it comes under the category of socially responsible investing. So that if you look at an investment, you can't consider it solely based on the one dimension, which is investment return. You have to look at what it does or does not do in our society.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Yeah.
Let me ask you then.
Yeah.
How often do you lead with that when people are considering whether to avail themselves of your financial planning?
Always.
And, I would think that folks from the mainstream, now, of course, what I think we're like 230 million people. So there's lots of room for variety is all I mean. But I would think in the mainstream, they'd say, no, first we got to make sure I got a lot of it, and then we can talk about what I can do with it.
Michael, what I do as a financial advisor is a grain of sand on the beach of financial services. Okay? That's how small a community it is. That everybody who does it can get together at a conference and sit in a room. So it's not something that's extremely popular. The reason being that people are fearful about their own money. They're fearful about being able to, they're living in survival mode. And a lot of people who lived through very hard economic times, like the Depression and the number of market crashes that we've had, are fearful. So they're trying to protect what they've got. And I think that what they don't realize is that attitude has caused a lot of pain in this world. We've got a lot of problems that stem from our relationship to money.
Well, very interesting stuff, Marc. Very, very interesting. I appreciate you sharing with it. I think certainly we have some, I'd say several touchstones of commonality. I'm
Absolutely.
glad to be able to share some of your ideas with the tens of millions who will be coming to watch. And in the meantime, thank you for coming and spending the time with me. Thank you for sitting down in front of your computer and spending the time with me. As I said, I'll be in touch fairly soon with an edited transcript, which you can comment on. If you feel I left an important part out, or whatever you think, just tell me, and we'll deal with that, and then I'll publish it with a photograph of you. And if you are active on social media, make sure everyone you know knows about this so they can come and watch.
Okay.
All right,
Okay.
Marc, thanks very
And
much.
I really appreciate the opportunity, Michael.
You're welcome. And, it is, this is just another, two-bit example of holism. You got something out of it. I got something out of it. We both benefited. And
I think it's great that you do this.
great. Well, let's carry it forward. Good to talk to you.
Okay. You take care.
Bye-bye.